for the speaker to be there? Does it make it more difficult to talk, for example?
Well, of course, this morning was a public hearing, and we didn't talk. We listened at the rest of our meetings, which some will be in private when we're attempting to draw the lines. I would think that it would make it difficult. And of course, he has a vote because of the Constitution, but I assure you that I am not going to support any plan in which Speaker Mutscher attempts to punish any of his enemies politically. I hope that he takes a statesmanlike view about the problem, but we're not going to go with a map drawn by some of Speaker Mutscher's lieutenants.
The first women prisoners to be housed at the Seagoville Federal Correctional Institute since 1942 moved in today from Ashland, Kentucky. A total of 59 women inmates were flown into Love Field by charter plane yesterday and today and bused to Seagoville, a minimum security facility. Most of the women were originally moved from Alderson, West Virginia, where they were involved in a work stoppage altercation with authorities at a women's correctional institute there. Woodrow Toft, warden at the Seagoville Center, said some of the women are considered more than minimum security risks. He said that there are facilities for the women, that they will be housed in formerly empty barracks on the grounds for what he termed an indefinite period. However, Channel 8 News has learned that the women prisoners will eventually be moved here to Fort Worth at the U.S. Clinical Research Center. Several of the Fort Worth employees from this center are in Seagoville today, aiding in the transfer of the prisoners from Kentucky. The Clinical Research Center was due to be transferred from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare to the Bureau of Prisons tomorrow. However, another delay in the transfer was granted yesterday. It's moved to October 8th now. There's been tremendous opposition to the Nixon administration plan to close this facility since the announcement 2 years ago, and even more opposition to the prison system's takeover announced last January. Senator Edward Kennedy has suggested an alternate plan which may be approved next Wednesday. He wants to keep the center as an HEW operation, but allow the Bureau of Prisons to use the center as a tenant. Several employees at the federal prisons have already moved onto the grounds here in anticipation of the takeover. U.S. Representative Paul Rogers of Florida is opposing the transfer because of the lack of facilities to treat the growing number of narcotics addicts in the U.S. and Vietnam veterans. But apparently the prison system is destined to get at least part of the $13 million 600-bed hospital if the information proves true that 59 women prisoners will be moved here from Seagoville. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
What I am about to show you will shock you, or at least it certainly should. That such a situation exists at all is tragic, but it is because there are many similar situations that I have arranged to take you behind that locked door. It is an upstairs bedroom in an apartment in Dallas. This is not yesterday or last year. This film was shot this morning. That child is mentally retarded. He is, admittedly, an exceptionally severe case, not at all typical of retarded children. Most psychiatrists agree that an IQ of 90 or so is what we accept as normal. This child has an IQ of 4. He is kept in this room because there is nowhere else for him. He climbed out windows and into neighbors' apartments, so the windows had to be boarded up. He won't stay dressed, so the windows had to be painted over. He eats from a bowl on the floor because he simply does not understand things like tables and forks. He cannot talk. He didn't walk until he was 5. His mother communicates with him however she must. When he wants to eat, he goes to the kitchen, finds what he wants, and attracts her attention, or the attention of anyone else who may be in the apartment. The tragedy of his life is compounded by the fact that his mother, because she cannot get him into any kind of an institution, must live virtually 24 hours a day inside the walls of her apartment, almost as much a prisoner as her 16-year-old son. I tell you this as a prelude to discussion of a problem which is currently being debated in North Texas. Last night at the Women's Building in Grand Prairie, the Commissioner of the Texas Department of Mental Health and Mental Retardation, Dr. David Wade, addressed an overflow crowd of parents of the mentally retarded and persons who are interested in the problems of the mentally retarded.
We probably will build a larger residential facility someplace in this area. The reason for that is that we still have a waiting list of over 1,000 children who need to be institutionalized, children who are not able to function at home or in community-supported type facilities. We would assume that this would probably be the last of the large residential facilities that we would build.
Well, we think the small ones will be more advantageous and more beneficial to the retarded population in our community.
Why?
Well, we have a number of large schools in Texas, and the new concept, I think, throughout the United States is far smaller schools.
Dr. Wade had some statistics which say almost as much as the film you just saw. Approximately 2,373 residents of Dallas and Tarrant counties require treatment in residential-type facilities for the mentally troubled. Currently, 1,717 of them are in state schools for the retarded. The schools are so overcrowded that 2 persons from this area applied for admission all the way back in 1963. Another 150 have been waiting for admission since 1968. Ed Killian, director of the Denton State School, told me that perhaps 1,400 persons, most of them children, need full-time residential facilities to save them from varying degrees of the fate of the youngster you met earlier this morning in that upstairs apartment here in Dallas. In spite of local sentiment, the large facility will be constructed, probably either at Waxahachie or Grand Prairie, though that decision has not yet been made. Dr. Wade agrees with our local agencies that smaller facilities are eminently important to the happiness and the future of thousands of mentally retarded children and people with mental illnesses. But there can be no overlooking the crying need for some place to put children whose lives will be shallow at best and who have waited, as have their parents, long, long years for a place they can feel at home and where their lives can be as much as can be made of them. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News, reporting.
The menace that is threatening the Fort Worth Zoo, according to witnesses, may be in the form of a pack of 3 large dogs about the size of German Shepherds. Within the past month, several attacks have been made on animals in the zoo. 13 rheas, or South American ostriches, have been killed a while back. Last night, the latest attack came when the animals invaded a deer pen and killed a young doe. I asked Zoo Director Elvie Turner about the future plans of zoo officials to catch the dogs.
Well, immediately we have the security guards stationed in this particular area where the pens are located, and we're leaving them there around the clock at night. And in addition to the security guards, we have the help of the animal shelter control, and they are putting out live traps, and we hope to catch these dogs in the act of getting into the pens or perhaps into the pens. One of the things that bothers us, we don't want to catch every stray that comes near the park, because we won't know when we actually catch the dog that is responsible for killing the animal, so we don't want to drop our vigilance till we actually catch the animal in or near the pen. We also, the police are patrolling the area outside of the zoo, watching for stray animals that might be responsible for coming in the zoo.
Until the pack of dogs has been captured and zoo officials have ascertained that no more danger lurks in the night hours, guards will be kept patrolling the area to protect the animals, and traps will be put out. Extra precautions will be taken, not necessarily to keep the zoo animals in, but just to keep the killer dogs out. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move at the Fort Worth Zoo.
Well, it's very hard to tell after just 2 exhibition games, but we do have a lot of rookies, and they're looking like they're going to shape up, though. We should have a fairly good team, really.
What about training camp as far as conditioning goes? We were talking earlier with some of the other boys about conditioning. How have you found the conditioning program here so far? A little too tough or not tough enough?
Well, I've enjoyed it because when I first came here 4 years ago, they used to scrimmage the first day. But now we skate for a few days, and I find it's a lot easier on me because you get a chance to get in shape before you start actually scrimmaging.
No, I really don't know. It would be a very difficult task as far as time-wise to be able to divide the state into 150 individual districts. Take Travis County, our home capital. We would have a tough time drawing precinct lines in that county because the census tracts are not even available yet. We're going to have to get all those together. If we're going to go the individual district route, it's going to take a great deal of staff work getting census tracts in all the urban areas. Some of them have not even been made officially public yet.
What is your reaction to Speaker Mutscher's decision not to step aside as Speaker?
I've not commented on what Speaker Mutscher has or has not done. I think it's inappropriate for me to talk about his indictment. I don't know what I would have done if I was him, but it places our Redistricting Board, of which he's a member of, in a very difficult position with him trying to serve on it.
I look at my appearance at Southern Methodist University in Dallas as symbolic of the fact that the Nixon administration is determined to accelerate its efforts in working with young people. We believe we have an outstanding record in bringing young people into the administration. We've also read reports that some Republicans would write off the 18 to 20-year-old vote. We think that there's a real opportunity for young people to participate in the administration. We think there's a real opportunity for them to participate in the election process. And rather than writing it off, I would say in a very strong way that we feel that with the program we have, we should attract young people in increasing numbers during the next year. We believe we can win a major percentage of that vote.
The mayor, along with Dallas Chamber of Commerce Convention Bureau Director Ray Benison and Convention Center Manager Pi Vanderslice, took an optimistic look at the expansion project, which is supposed to put Dallas in the forefront of convention cities by 1973. The expansion is way behind original completion estimates. Here in the main exhibit hall, they hope to be finished by summer of next year, in time for 9,000 Girl Scouts scheduled to meet here in June. Luckily, because the whole thing was due for completion in mid-1972, the meeting rooms on the other side of this building won't be needed until September. That's when the American Academy of Ophthalmology and Otolaryngology is due to bring 15,000 people here for a convention. It was tough enough landing that convention, and officials are keeping their fingers crossed on the completion date. Dallas has more than $45 million tied up in this convention center, and it doesn't want to waste any time getting at least part of that money back. Impatient as they are, though, officials would rather talk about 1973. That year, they expect 1.5 million people to spend $2.25 million in conventions here in Dallas. Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News on the Move at the Dallas Convention Center expansion.
I saw that installation, and it's very dramatic. I think within a very short time, just the structure and the things you can do with it will just command that this be done. And so I'm going to suggest that by 1980, this will be a major international gateway, if not the major one in the United States.